Welcome everyone to our fifth session with Miranda Alcott, and her guest today is Linda Tellington-Jones on the topic of communicating with animals at a cellular level, intention for healing. And I'm going to be introducing you to Miranda and Linda, and I'll start with Miranda. Miranda Alcott is a veterinary medical intuitive specializing in animal communication and is the creator of Harmonious Listening. She was a certified crisis responder and instructor trainer for the National Organization for Victim Assistance, as well as an instructor trainer of emergency first aid and CPR for pets for the American Red Cross. Miranda earned a master's degree in spiritual psychology and completed a year of postgraduate work in consciousness, health, and healing from the University of Santa Monica. She has also studied with internationally renowned animal ambassador Linda Tellington-Jones and became a certified TTOUCH practitioner for companion animals. For 32 years, Miranda has maintained a private practice, integrating her crisis counseling experience, intuitive abilities, and coaching skills to support both her human and animal clients' needs. And her guest today is Linda Tellington-Jones has its roots in a philosophy that sees all beings, humans and animal alike, as reflections of a divine whole. The Tellington Method was first created 4 decades ago as a system of animal training, healing, and communication that allows people to relate to animals in a deeper, more compassionate way, a way that furthers interspecies connection and honors the body, mind, and spirit of both animals and their people. The Tellington Method utilizes a variety of techniques of touch, movement, and body language to affect behavior, performance, and health, and to increase an animal's willingness and ability to learn in a painless and anxiety-free environment. Linda is the founder and director of the Tellington TTOUCH Method, a gentle form of bodywork and movement exercises for enhancing learning, behavior, performance, and health in animals and people. Her corporate center for Tellington TTOUCH Training Method is located in Santa Fe, New Mexico in the United States. The center organizes worldwide demonstrations and courses for students of TTOUCH for companion animals, horses, and humans. And now it's my pleasure to turn this over to Miranda Alcott.
Thank you, Robin, and welcome everyone. I'm so excited that you're here again this Sunday. We're so fortunate to be able to spend time together again. I feel so blessed and so grateful. Today, I think you're going to really enjoy Linda Tellington-Jones. I've known her for so long, so many years, and her work is profound. And through the years, I've known her for many. We've gone from not being able to prove that the work that she was teaching us had scientific validation to now where we do. And for those of us who have been with Linda for so many years, it's very exciting time. So Linda, welcome, and thank you for joining us today.
Such a pleasure, Miranda. And I have sitting on my lap my assistant, and see if I can just, can you see her?
Yeah.
Janie.
Yeah.
And she's now 14. And it's so interesting because I've been working closely for quite a few years with Ella Biddle and her hospice program for animals. And this is just an opportunity for us to be in a special way in those later years.
Can we get you to move? Yes, there we go. Good. Wonderful. Wonderful. Well, and it's true. All of your animals have had your work for so long. So we'll get into that because your work also applies to humans. So it's a very broad, wonderful work. So, Linda, how did you come to this work? How did this get created? Co-creation come through you? How do you say that, and how did it work? How did it happen?
Well, it's a long path. I have been with animals since I was very young. I grew up on a farm in Canada, north of Edmonton, Alberta. In a family of parents and grandparents who honored animals in a really special way. And, you know, I rode horses to school for the first 6 years of my life, and we had many horses, and I rode every day. And then I had, for over the years, I had a school for riding instructors and trainers with students from 9 countries and 36 states over the years in the 60s. And in 1960, my grandfather, Will Kaywood, actually came to visit us when we had a thoroughbred farm in Hemet, California. And he brought us an introduction to a form of massage for horses that he had learned from Russian gypsies in Moscow when he was training. He was an American training in Moscow. And we started using this work, this massage for horses, for our endurance horses, because I did a lot of 100-mile endurance riding and showing and eventing with horses. And for 15 years, we were very successful with this work. We actually wrote a book in 1965 called Physical Therapy for the Athletic Horse. But it was always about the body work on horses and not anything to do with their mind in that, from this form of massage. Well, 1975, I started a 4-year training at the Humanistic Psychology Institute with Dr. Moshe Feldenkrais, thinking I was going to use the miraculous Feldenkrais method for humans for my riding students. But in the second day on the course, Moshe Feldenkrais made a statement that, you know, it just like changed my whole way of thinking, because he said that it's possible for a human to learn in one experience using gentle, non-habitual movements without repetition. And I thought, wait a minute, if this is, I remember lying on the floor, Miranda, and it's like my ears pricked up, I think like a horse often, and I thought, wait a minute, if this is true for a human, it's got to be true for a horse. And so I went out that very afternoon, and I worked with a mare who was 16 years old, never been ridden. She had been a broodmare in Montana and just come down to California. And she was very hard to catch. She didn't relate well to humans, wasn't interested. And so I caught her up, and I just started exploring possibilities. How could I move her lips in ways that she couldn't, and her ears in different ways, and her tail and her legs? And, you know, we'd been moving legs and bodies for a long time, but never with the idea of activating unused neural pathways to the brain to activate the learning potential of an animal, which is what Moshe did with people. And what happened, in about 45 minutes, this mare got very relaxed, and people watching thought I'd hypnotized her. And I was just exploring, and so I finished the session, I turned her loose, and the next morning, the owner called me and he said, Linda, I don't know what happened to my horse, but last night when I went to catch her after to bring her in to feed, for the first time she came to the gate. I didn't have to chase her. And I led her into the stall. Instead of diving into the corner for her feed, she kind of stood there like, like wanting me to do something. I thought, wow, that's really interesting. And that was when I started working on horses after all those years. I mean, 30 years at that point I'd been with horses. And with a whole new concept. And so I began exploring this new way of teaching horses how to learn how to learn. And of course, because everybody who has horses has dogs, and at one point we actually bred Great Danes at our ranch. And so we found that, wow, it was possible that an animal would learn much faster and very willingly when we started working on the body in these gentle ways. And then I was very successful. My first book is still in print in Europe on this method. But then in 1982, I had an epiphany. I understand now, I see it in a really different way. I was working on a very difficult mare at the Delaware Equine Clinic, veterinary clinic. And one of the vets asked me to look at this horse because they couldn't figure out why she was so resistant. She would bite and kick and really was unhappy when you tried to groom her or saddle her. And Miranda, I put my hands on this mare with this very gentle Feldenkrais work, just moving her, And she got really quiet, and she didn't try to bite or kick, and she was really listening. And her owner said to me, okay, Linda, come on, what are you doing? Are you using energy, or why is this mare so quiet? What is your secret? And I intuitively said, don't worry what I'm doing. Just put your hands on the horse and move the skin in a circle. Now, you have to understand, looking back at that, I had no, when I said that, I thought, wait a minute, what's this? Because it had nothing to do with the Feldenkrais work. Yeah. But I totally trust my intuition, as you well know. And I kept my mouth shut, and I didn't tell her I didn't know what I was talking about. And she walked up, and she just moved the skin in this quiet circle. And the mare got as quiet for her as she was for me. And I thought in that moment, wait a minute, anybody can learn this. It takes years to learn this wonderful Feldenkrais work. And that's when, 1983, in July, I started following the circles.
That's so beautiful.
Well, the thing is, there are several other things that came into it then. And what had happened in 78, how did I get connected to cells? Because the Feldenkrais work has the concept is to activate unused neural pathways to the brain through gentle, wonderful, non-habitual movements. Well, in the first year of our training, one of our textbooks was a book called Man on His Nature. And I am over the years, I have been so influenced and supported by reading. And so this book was called Man on His Nature, Sir Charles Sherrington. And Sherrington made a statement in this book that has absolutely changed my life. And he said, and Sherrington was a Nobel Prize winner, a scientist basically, and this was his only book on philosophy. And he wrote, isn't the body a wonder? If you would cut out several inches of nerve, most of the time, they will find their way back, grow back together. And he said, how is this possible? Simple. Because every cell in the body knows its function within the body. And when I said that, I remember looking at my fingers and thinking, wow, and I don't understand how this amazing Feldenkrais work works, because that was the first year of our 4-year training. All I have to do is say, cells, just talk to this body and remind the cells of their potential for perfect functioning. And I just started to see the body as this collection of cells. And what I've learned now, thanks to reading Bruce Lipton and The Biology of Belief and the Spontaneous Evolution, his second amazing book, what I realize now, I see this body as just this remarkable universe of intelligence. And all we have to do with this really gentle work is talk to the body and remind the body for its potential for communication. And I just have to share this experience. In 2006, I had the honor of meeting for 2 hours with Dr. Fritz Albert Popp at his institute in Neuss, Germany. And when I showed him just some touches on his shoulder, and I said, you know, when I first started seeing the body as a collection of cells, I had this sense that when I put my hands on an animal who'd been injured or who was sick or just really in a state of fear, it's as though there was light in the cells. And I don't understand how I saw this, but this is what I experienced. And he said, because this was the work for 30 years of Dr. Popp, he said the light in the cells represents the communication between the cells. And this was to me like this huge aha, because in 1968, I had an astrological chart done for my birthday. And what this chart said is that in my lifetime, I would develop a form of communication that would spread around the world. And that's what this is. It's about communicating with our miraculous bodies that we are. So kind of a long story, but
no, this is
so
wonderful. This is so wonderful, Linda. I love your excitement for your work, your love, and I'm finding it absolutely kind of breathtaking right now that I had my chart done and someone said I would be developing a new form of communication that didn't exist, and here we are. So this is so lovely, Linda, and what you were sharing, and I really want everyone to hear, it's listening, to listen inside of you. One of the things that Linda said early on is that she trusts her intuition totally. Okay, you can see by her excitement, we have not heard doubt. We have not heard, she's moving forward, forward, forward. And I will tell you, as long as I've known Linda, and Linda worked many years before I met her, she has always been with the attitude of pioneer, and of course it works. And we may not understand it, but of course it works. So in light of that, Linda, can you speak to some of the studies that are now done, or did you have another thing you wanted to share first?
Well, no, I would like to speak about the studies, but I'd also like to say that in that astrological chart, one of the statements was that in order to develop this form of communication, I would have to learn to trust my intuition.
Ah, there it is.
And so I tried to find a definition of intuition, and the first one I found was intuition is unlearned knowledge. And of course, I understand now from reading all of Greg Braden's books and Lynn McTaggart and the Intention Experiment and the Field. What I know now is that this information that came to me, I always thought it came from the horse angels or, you know, just divine information, which it is, but it comes out of the field. And all we have to do is listen, and we will find what it is that we need to know. That is what is so exciting. And so over the years, the first thing that happened to me, the first kind of information that came to me after that astrological chart was in 1974. I was in a workshop at Esalen Institute in Big Sur with Robert Monroe from the Robert Monroe Institute.
Wow.
With 40 people. And Russell Tark from Stanford Research was there, and he was doing a study on all of us in this workshop with Robert Monroe. And what he said to me is that I had the closest to a 50-50 use of both logic and intuition of anybody that he measured. And that really interested me because I always thought I was pretty intuitive and not so logical. So I started looking for ways, okay, how do we develop our intuition? How do we develop our logic? Because without logic, we can't function well as humans. But without intuition, we don't care about the rest of the world. It separates us if we only use logic. So what happened next is 1984, a wonderful woman named Anna Wise, who was the director at the time of the Biofeedback Institute of Boulder, Colorado, watched me work with a horse. And she said, listen, Linda, I believe that you are working in the awakened mind state that was developed by Maxwell Cade, and who studied forms of consciousness, states of consciousness. And so she did an EEG study on me, and I indeed was working in this awakened mind state, which just shows an activation in both hemispheres, logic and intuitive, left and right hemispheres of the brain, in all four brainwave patterns. In beta, that we need for logical thinking, in alpha, which is that state of being in this sort of daydreaming. So many people have it, and as children we're told don't daydream. It's so important. And the theta and delta, both hemispheres. Okay, that was really interesting. Then she did a study of 15 of my students and of the horses we were working on. And we actually found, and she talks about this in her book called The High Performance Mind on page 211. She writes about this study that we did. So we found that when we were actually doing these circular touches on a person or an animal, that we had an activation in both hemispheres of all four brainwave patterns. And if we were being T-touched. So that was really interesting. And next year we did another study, and we found that this was again true. And this is what's kept me so passionate about this work, because when you reach out with these gentle circular touches, which we now have refined to 1 1/4, moving the skin, try it on yourself, just try it on your arm, because you can reach out to a dog or a cat or a bird or a lizard or an elephant or yourself and move the skin in a 1 1/4. And you have this full activation, which Maxwell Cade studied as a state of genius functioning. So that was, something we kind of did 2 years, 84 and 85. And then over the years, we had a wonderful study done as a PhD study for humans with 168 soldiers who were afraid of injections, done by Cecilia Wendler as her PhD dissertation. And what they found is that there is a reduction in pulse, in elevated pulse and respiration and blood pressure in people who were afraid. Just 3 minutes of T-touch. Now, Miranda, what we found with more recent research is that when you do the heart hug, like I'm doing right now, can you see on the screen?
Yes.
Am I up?
Yes, and as a matter of fact, I'm going to ask you to demonstrate it in a minute, so go ahead.
Okay. So you just put one hand over the other and imagine the face of a clock on your heart chakra. Because when you imagine the face of a clock, you have numbers, 12, 6 is toward the ground, and 3 and 9. And imagining the numbers activates the logical part of the brain. But imagining the clock, the imagine, activates the right side. So, and then you just gently kind of connect it very lightly at 6 o'clock and move the skin around the face of the clock, very lightly, no press hard, just the lightest contact, just enough to move the skin 1 1/4. And try both directions, because some people prefer clockwise and some people prefer the other direction. And see what feels good to you. So what we've discovered is that you can be in a real state of anxiety or stress or way too much on your plate. And just take this deep breath and just 2 or 3 of these quiet circle 1/4 and a deep breath, and go inside and just connect with this brilliance of 50 trillion cells that make up the average human body. And we are connected to the whole universe when we go inside to this brilliance, this divine connection that we can have in this way.
Thank you, thank you. That's so lovely. And I was watching our energies change and shift as we were each doing that. That was so delightful. I'm wondering, can you move your camera down just a little to purposely demonstrate T-touch, just a little bit, so you can hold your hand up? Yes. Right, right. That's so wonderful. Yes.
And that's what we call now today a heart hug. It's like, this beautiful coming into yourself.
Yes.
And it's very light. There's no pressure. Just the lightest. Some people prefer actually to fold their hand over and very lightly move it. And some people prefer just to cup the hand lightly and put one hand over the other.
And then, Linda, could you just show how you would touch an animal on your arm or on your arm?
Yes.
Could you demonstrate that?
So, can you see my arm?
Yes, yes. Just
the secret to success is very lightly make a connection and move the skin in 1 1/4. And if you just do exactly 1 circle, like
hold your arm up. There we go, up higher. Yes, thank you.
I put my I imagine the face of the clock on my arm, and I then put the 6 o'clock towards my wrist, and I move the fingers. You see, I place my middle finger the longest, so it is the one that guides the skin. So I go from 6 to 9, 12. 3, and you notice my fingers straighten out as I go over to 3, and then 6, and I come back to 9. Now, the interesting thing about this is that if you just go 6 to 6, it's not complete. It's really interesting. I had a neurologist in my training at one point many years ago, and she said that she believes that what's happening when you finish that quarter of a circle is such clear intention, but it's also, she thinks that that's what's actually really activating the communication at another level. It's just this 1 1/4. And you try to see which is your preferred direction, because that can change depending upon which part of the body you're on. And with an animal, I just, you know, if I'm working on a dog or a horse.
Let's move the camera up just again. Move the camera up to your face now. There we go. There we go. Thank you. Okay, when you're working on an animal.
Right. I first try one direction that seems easy for me. And then if the animal seems to like it, I continue. If they don't like it, first of all, I get lighter, or maybe use a different part of my hand, because we use all different parts of our hands. And I've given animal names to various parts of the fingers so that it's easy to learn and identify. And I can say to you, well, wait a minute, like this is the clouded leopard is when I use the pads of my fingers together. Like, can you see that?
Yeah.
That's the clouded leopard, and that brings the most awareness. But if I just want a wonderful feeling of connection and soothing, I use like just whatever part of my hand melts around the body, and we call that the abalone because it's like the big muscle of an abalone under your hand, and it just kind of conforms to the body and very softly. And can you see the picture that's up now? Do you see the picture that's up on the screen? Is that?
Yes. Oh, sweet.
Now, this is a dog in Berlin. This is Eve. I call her my little god dog because they could not touch her back. She was 6 years old. She belongs to one of our most skillful and experienced dog trainers and Tellington TTOUCH trainers for companion animals. And nobody, they'd had, our top people had tried to touch her back, and actually, she did not want you to touch her. You couldn't even get a harness on her. Now, this was the second day I'd worked with her, and you see she was carrying a harness for the first time, but she has a little patch on there, and that's actually a LifeWave pain patch that I just popped on her, and as soon as I did, something happened. It's like a homeopathic thing, and I could suddenly touch her back, and then the next day, we could touch her, all of us could touch her all over, and she could carry a harness, and I am certain that she had real pain in her back all those years. And it's just like, it was so beautiful. And then a week later, Katja Kraus emailed and said that she was playing with her siblings for the first time. Because she was always protecting her back before. And we could just do these very light, the lightest touches to move her skin all over her back. And she was a little happy camper. I call her my god dog.
Oh, that's so sweet, and I love seeing that story. So for people who want to know more about your work, I know you have DVDs. How many books, Linda? Tell the truth now. How many books do you have out?
I'm so blessed, Miranda. I am about to publish my 20th book. It's coming out at the end of January. TTOUCH is called Dressage with Body, Mind, and Soul. I'm very excited. It has many of the concepts that I teach in my classes, but there's not time to really go into them in depth, and it's all in the book, and it's the influence of Greg Braden and Lynn McTaggart and all these wonderful influences in the Heart Math Institute, and how being in heart coherence affects our animals when we work with them, and I'm very excited about it. But I have 20 wonderful books, and I don't know what I did with it. I thought I had it here. I have a new book out finally after 15 years. We completely redid my dog book called Tellington TTOUCH for Your Dog, and it's I put it up on the screen. I don't know what I did with it. I had it here a little while ago. But I moved it. Anyway, it's a wonderful book, and you know that little book that actually Viking re-edited 2 years ago.
Excellent. Excellent. So now for people who want to know more, or now, well, I did have one more question before I go there. How many languages are your books in at this point? Do you know?
14.
Oh.
Do you see this picture up on the screen right now? I want to
yes, tell us about this picture.
I just love that picture. This is teaching Heart Hug to a group of orphans in Soweto, Johannesburg, outside of Johannesburg, teaching them Heart Hug so that when they are in a state of fear, that they can do this to themselves and calm themselves and bring them out of a state of anxiety. And that's when we've been doing this for years, but we didn't have a name for it, and that's when we started calling it the Heart Hug.
And this is so important, because if everyone just walks away knowing how to do the heart hug from listening to this is changing the world, obviously, and what a beautiful gift to take it into an area that is so challenged, Linda, and because I think all of us sort of agree that the animals would be in a much better place in their lives on our planet if we were. And this is so valuable. You can't really say, I only work on animals if you're not working on yourself.
No.
You need to be working on yourself all the time so that you can support the animals. And this is beautiful work. So please, everybody, we're so blessed. This is so lovely for you to teach us this today. So how do people find you, and how do they get your books? And I know you have DVDs. I know all of that. So how do they get a hold of all these wonderful materials?
Well, if they want to, we have a lot of YouTubes that you could go and actually see the work. Go to TTOUCH.com, and you'll see part of a video that shows you how to use the touches for your dog. There's on the YouTube, you see it on horses. We have a wonderful YouTube up now that Eleanor Silverstein did, working with a resident of a senior home. She has Alzheimer's, and she's in a wheelchair, and she had to be pushed around very fast by her daughter because she couldn't sit still. And so it shows us, it's just a beautiful video of showing us doing T-Touch on her and how quiet she got. And she's sitting there with her eyes closed, obviously listening, and then we stop and we started to talk, and her eyes popped open, and we said, do you want more? Yes, more. And it's a lovely thing to watch. And we work a lot with T-Touch in senior homes with dementia and Alzheimer's, and a family member can do this. This is why I'm so passionate about this work, Miranda, because in this time on our planet, we need something to empower ourselves, something we can trust ourselves and come to a place of peace ourselves. And that's what T-Touch can do for you and your family.
Yeah, very well said. I love the stories with the pictures, and I can't help but wonder if we have some more stories that you brought with you, some more pictures. So, Mike, can we put up another one? Yeah.
I put up this was the 15th of November, just a couple of weeks ago. This is with Greg Braden and with Ulla Peterson, and you've been to Ulla's place, and that's Oscar. Oscar is 19, and at my conference in Santa Fe, Greg was our keynote presenter, and we did a fundraiser for Ulla Peterson's Animal Hospice. And I've worked on Oscar now 2 different years, starting when he was 17. He's kind of a permanent resident. He wasn't not there just for hospice. He's been there. He was abandoned, and Ulla's had him for several years. And it's a beautiful, beautiful program.
It is. It's a beautiful hospice program. It's one of the few in the nation, and she really is conscious of what the animals need. It's a very beautiful, beautiful hospice in Santa Fe.
And so, Greg was amazing. I mean,
I was just going to ask you, how did that, yes.
We had 2 hours of his presentation that he donated the whole proceeds to her program, and we were just very excited. And you know, he is one of my absolute visionary heroes. I read all his books over and over. I started with The Divine Matrix and Deep Truth in Fractal Time. These books are really important because there's so much fear around us in these times, and he brings together science and spirituality in a way that gives us confidence in ourselves.
Yes, he does. He does. And he brings enough of the scientific component that for people who need the scientific component, he has a wonderful melding for people to be able to receive it and accept and go on, as does Lynn McTaggart. For those of you who haven't read The Field, that's a wonderful book as well. So can we have some more stories and pictures, please?
Yes, let's slide through and see what I put up.
See what the next one is coming up.
Who's up there?
Yeah.
Well, I want to, while we're waiting, I don't have a picture of this little mouse.
Yeah.
I have a mouse that is very dear to my heart. He was named Ace, and he was brought to one of my week-long dog companion animal trainings by a vet. And she brought him, of course, to learn about what we did with dogs, but because he had started biting her just recently, and she couldn't understand it. So I took two feathers, and I just started doing little touches with holding the feathers like about 6 inches away from his body, and did little touches on him with the feathers. And it didn't take 1 minute of these little circular touches, and I could pick him up in my hand, and he was totally quiet. And then she took him, and it just, what the circular touches do is release fear at the cellular level. And, you know, when I first got this many years ago, it was 1978, I was actually doing a fundraiser for the American dressage team to go to Goodwood to the World Championships in England. And I was working on a really challenging horse. It was a dressage horse that was not one of the top horses, but very fearful. And someone said to me, I was just doing this stuff on it, I don't know what I was doing, and somebody said, Linda, what are you doing? And intuitively, I said, I'm releasing fear at the cellular level. And Miranda, when I said, oh my gosh, what does that mean? Because nobody talked about cells in 1978.
Of course
it was
no,
not, because AIDS was not, you know, well known, not known.
Right.
So
right.
I kept my mouth shut, but I was really nervous because I thought, oh my God, you know what, people are going to think I'm nuts. This is where I thought it's going to invalidate my work. But that night, I made a phone call to a friend of mine, Dr. Alice DeGroot. She was the first veterinary woman acupuncturist, for Equus magazine. She was an advisor for Equus. And she was a friend of mine. And I called her and I said, do you think it's possible that cells could hold fear? And she said, Linda, it's only in the Western world. This is not known. It's common knowledge. It's common knowledge in Eastern medicine. And that really validated me, like the Dr. Pop statements about communication at the cellular level. So this picture now, this is Kiko from the movie. This is from the movie Free Willy.
Yes, tell us.
This was such an honor to work with him. Actually, I was sent by a veterinarian in Albuquerque who had been communicating with him from a distance. And so I flew down and I spoke to the trainer, and this is my first introduction to him. And normally it would take a month for him to come to somebody, to accustom them. And so the reason the vet asked me to go down and use T-Touch with him is they were already planning to move him up to Oregon at this point. And because he was so shy, you know, those who knew him, his trainer was really concerned about him. And when I say trainer, it's more his companion, because he was so bonded to her that she could not take a vacation. And so it was, he came right up to me, and when I put my hands on him, he just had this little tremble in his body, like through the whole 17 feet of him, this little tremble. I said, is that normal? And she said, no, it's not. He doesn't normally do it. So I asked, why do you think he's doing this? And he said, I think he's excited to see you. I think he knows you from this communication from the vet. And so I got to work with him, and you can see that he had these dolphin friends, and it was a great pleasure, because my whole concept for doing the T-Touch on him was to get him to trust more. Because the reason we have this T-Touch, it's Tellington T-Touch, the second T actually stands for trust. And that's what happens when you do these circular touches at the cellular level. It's bringing trust at the cellular level.
Touching with trust and loving and compassion and So beautiful. You know, we had the pleasure of having Alona Selke on the second webinar, and her work with dolphins and talking about it. And this is a whole nother level that you're addressing here, with hands-on and an animal that has a background of being very hesitant and shy, and you're being able to work with him. And I love the fact that the dolphins came over. It's like, me too, me too.
They always wanted the attention.
Yeah, it's like, I want what he's having.
Right.
Yes, oh, that's a lovely, lovely story. Oh,
This is one of my favorite pictures. This is a meerkat, and this is at our training center at Tilly Farm in Bath, England. Sarah Fisher has the most wonderful TTOUCH training center. And in the week-long companion animal trainings, she has a man who rescues these various animals, and skunks and meerkats and owls and all these wonderful animals, and snakes, and all of our practitioners get to come in and do TTOUCH on them. But this is one of my favorite pictures, because having a meerkat sitting on my head was so funny. It was so much fun.
That is so much fun. Go ahead.
Well, I didn't really do anything with him. He just was playing with me more than I did anything with him, but I love this picture.
But you know what's wonderful about this picture too, Linda, is that I'm picking up that the vibration from his paws to your head, it's the full circle. It's coming full circle. So how interesting that an animal got to give back to you in this wonderful way. And what a sweetheart. What an exciting experience. Oh, I love that, a full circle. Wonderful. What's next?
Let's see.
Let's see what the next picture is.
Oh, I love this picture. This is a lovely mare named Whisper, and I was working with her with a very wonderful, experienced rider. She bred this mare, but she was really frustrated with her because she couldn't get the kind of impulsion and engagement and enthusiastic attitude that she wanted from this mare. And so she was frustrated, and she was in a state of fear that, for me, that's how I saw it, that she wasn't going to be able to get this. So it was always about pushing and forcing, and I love this mare, and I got on her, and you see we have a promise wrap, the yellow wrap. This gets her to engage behind it, gives her a sense of awareness of her body. And I have around her neck.
Wait just 1 minute, Linda. I want so that everyone understands what they're seeing. The yellow piece of tape that you're seeing, and it's not tape as in sticky, is a Linda Tellington-Jones invention. So I want to slow down just a moment so that people understand this is not part of the dressage, not part of what this animal was doing. This is what Linda has put onto the body of this animal. And why, again, Linda, did you do that?
So that she would sense her hindquarters. What had happened that I believe had actually prevented her from giving as much as her rider had hoped for, she had 2 colic surgeries. And people don't realize how, if you do not work on the belly and the surgery site and work on that after, there's something that goes on. They're restricted by this. So by putting, this is actually a colored elastic leg wrap. And we have a whole book now. I don't know if you've seen the new books that my sister Robin Hood did on.
No, I have not. I have not yet.
Wrap it up for horses, yeah. For horses, dogs, and people. The whole wrap thing that we do, because it's amazing how it works. So that brought her a new awareness. And we have many riders who find they just take actually an ACE wrap and do this. It's attached from the saddle around the hindquarters to the other side. Now, around her neck, you see there's a, looks like a necklace. Can you see it? It's blue.
It's dark, but yes, dark.
And that is what we call, that's a balance rein. And so that picks the horse up and it affects the muscles that run between the front legs and helps to bring her back up. And then what we call a promise wrap, because it's a promise for engagement of the hindquarters. That combination just gives her a whole new sense of a feeling of her own body. And also the fact that I love this mare, and I knew that she had infinite possibilities. And these words, infinite possibilities, is something that we can practice having. Instead of seeing what she couldn't do, seeing the glass half empty. In other words, we could have more. Seeing her her wonder and her beauty, and you can see the look on this mare's face. Because I got on her and I was in heart coherence, which is measurable with this wonderful little M wave that's put out by Heart Math Institute. It's a personal biofeedback little apparatus. And the fact is, when I have a full heart and I approach it from a point of view of love, this mare feels it. And she can give her infinite possibilities. And you can see from the look on her face, she was very different.
Yeah. Very soft. Yeah, very soft face, yeah.
And normally she's like really engaged and really, you know, not in heart coherence. And I just find, I'm about to write an article actually later today for Trailblazer magazine on riding from the heart, because that's what my dressage book, you know, Dressage with Body, Mind, and Soul is about. How do we be with our animals from heart? And I love this picture.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorites. Her name is Whisper.
That's beautiful. Thank you. And Linda, one of the classes that I have started teaching in the past year and a half is the spiritual agreements that we make with our animals, which has to do with the lessons that they come in to teach us, which you have taught me so much about as well. And it's a very interesting, popular class. People begin the class by scratching their heads saying, you mean what I've taught my animal? You mean what I've taught her? But no, that's not actually what we're addressing here. It's what you've learned from your animal and what agreement spiritually did you make with the two of you. So I love your addressing the facts coming from the heart, and now in writing about it, you've always come from your heart. That's never been a separate, but now that you're more publicly making it accessible to the rest of us in such an easy way to take it in a book. I'm very excited, very excited. So you mentioned that your latest book is specifically focused on dressage. And you also said that they have redone the soul, they've redone the dog book as well. And I'm wondering if the dog book, and where are we with the cat book, and could you speak a little bit about those books?
Well, with the dog book, what I brought into it is this concept of ho'oponopono.
Yes, Ho'oponopono.
You know, and also this, it's a Hawaiian concept of pono and pilikia. And I learned this from our Hawaiian spiritual teacher, Auntie Mahialani Henry. And it's the concept when if we have a dog or a cat or a horse who has an issue, instead of just looking at the drama or the trauma, which is represented by the pilikia word, in the book we recommend that you take a piece of paper and you put a line down the center, and on the top on the left you put the words pono. And that pono represents a state of excellence. And so you write down 5 things you love about this animal. Focus there first. And then under pilikia, you write, okay, maybe the issues you have that create some trauma in your life that you would like to influence. And then I think this is where, and then you hold the possibility, and this is the beauty of the concept of the circular touches over the whole animal's body that gives them a new sense of themselves. And we do the ground exercises, we're going through the labyrinth over different grounds, over balance boards and stuff, so that the animal learns a new, whether it's a dog or a horse, a new state of focus. And even for your kitties, we actually make a labyrinth and have them follow something through the labyrinth. And with people, we have children go through labyrinths. It teaches them focus and brings them into themselves in a new way. And so for me, this combination of using, okay, see what you love about your animal, and then what are little issues you'd like to work with. So that's one of the big concepts in the book that's changed. And we have also from 5 of our instructors, because we have a dozen instructors around the world, we have stories of how the animals that they've worked with, that they changed. So it's really an inspiring, like it was before, very informational book, but lots of more case studies and
wonderful,
real new concepts.
Well, now we have, believe it or not, we are through the first hour, and we're just about to take questions from people. But I wanted to mention that you shared with us that your Facebook page became overwhelmed. And so that people, I know, but that's great. That's a wonderful problem to have. And so now the Facebook address is Tellington Touch World.
Yes, Tellington T-Touch World.
Tellington
T-Touch World.
T-Touch. So remember, it's always two T's. So
yeah.
Tellington, TTOUCH World.
Right.
And also, again, your website is TTOUCH.com.
Right.
And if you go online, you can sign up for the free online newsletter.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of ways.
Yeah.
It comes out once a month. And so I'm wondering now. There is just one more picture that I would love to pull up if Mike can find it, which is you working with the elephant, because I feel that that's such a beautiful story. And from what I know, working with elephants, it has also as much to do with the human that is with you as well. Because that, you know, those of us who have worked with animals in the wild, or animals who are in captivity, who are animals from the wild, maybe that we don't get near. For all of you who haven't had a chance to touch any of these animals, it is a very rare trust. And it means gaining trust of the humans who are around that animal. And so not only are you seeing that Linda's working with these animals directly with them, but she had to go through the humans to get them, and she includes the humans in what she's doing. So Mike, do we have the picture? Can we put that up?
Yeah.
It's up now. Wonderful. Yeah. Wonderful. There it is. Good. Could you tell us how that came to be?
Well, this is actually I'm teaching the keeper how to do the circular touches on this elephant's ear, because often in some of the zoos, and I first did this in the Washington National Zoo with a vet there, because they had to do a weekly blood draw, and because the elephant was nervous, the veins collapsed and they couldn't get a blood draw. So by doing touches, and normally I'll take a warm washcloth and do the touches through the washcloth. I was just showing him how to do it here, because then they lose the fear and you can get the vein, and that's what I was doing right here.
And that's so beautiful, and I love seeing the look on that being's face lying sideways. I love looking into the eye of that elephant, who is so grateful, so grateful. So Robin, I know we have people that are interested in asking Linda some questions. Can you tell me who we might have first?
Yes. First we have a question from Deborah Fish. Would you like me to enable their microphones, or would you like me to ask them in the... Okay, great. So let me get Deborah up. And
actually, and it might go faster. We'll see if from time to time you do ask the questions for them.
Okay.
We'll see. Yeah.
Okay. Great. So Deborah, your microphone is enabled, and your video camera, if you click on the icon, is enabled also.
Hi.
Hi.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Deborah, where are you coming from?
Birmingham in the UK.
Great.
The question I was asking was about the Tellington touch. With the circle, do you follow a sequence like, say, Reiki? You follow a certain order as you move around the body, or is it quite random and just intuitively led?
Well, you're talking about animals or people?
Tellington touch on the animals with a circle.
On the animals. So with an animal, first of all, we look to find the place where they feel confident about you touching. Okay. In other words, if it's an animal, you talked about dogs, cats, horses, cats, kitties. So one of the least threatening places is around the shoulders. So you put very gently on the shoulders. And the important thing about this work is we're working at the cellular level. So it's the lightest contact you can make with the body. And with a kitty, sometimes it's the back of the fingers like this, not even with the front of the hand. and just move around, move with a 1 1/4 circles very lightly on the shoulders, and then kind of explore back with these little circles to see where the cat says, no, don't go there. So then you go back to where they trust you again, and you slowly work up to trust. And often, if a cat is really sensitive about the abdominal area or the hindquarters and the tail, I'll just take the tips of my fingers and just make these little moves like this, the lightest little move, and see. But it's 1 1/4, and then do a little light move, 1 1/4, to the next spot. And when the cat says, go, oh, okay, I hear you, so that they know that you're listening, and then you go back and you establish a connection, a level of trust, so then eventually you can go over the whole kitty. And when you can touch them everywhere, what it does is help the body to function in an ideal state. So whether you're working with a scaredy cat, you know, it's said that once a cat is mature, you can't change a norm, like a cat who's nervous about strangers. That's not our experience at all. With these little touches, and we're only talking a couple of minutes at a time. This is not a long session. And if you'll see in my, have you seen my kitty book? It's got wonderful pictures.
No, but I'm going to look for it. Thank you.
Yeah, it does. You can get it in the UK too, and you're probably best to get it from Amazon. You'll see it. TTOUCH for cats, and just step by step with the lightest contact, go to the places of trust, and then move to the areas where they don't trust. And right around the mouth on kitties, like I kind of go like this around their mouth, because around the mouth of any animal, we can affect the emotional state. So if they're nervous or afraid or a little resistant, that's where you can kind of get in there. And sometimes I'll take a damp Q-tip and work around the mouth with the Q-tip in the beginning.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you, Deborah. That was really wonderful. What a great question. Yeah. Robin, did we have another question? If not, I'd love to go to a picture. Okay, good.
Yeah, we have the next question is from Susan.
Hear me?
Yes, and where are you calling from?
I'm calling from San Diego, Robin.
Okay.
I wanted to thank Linda. This is very, very enlightening. But I was just really curious if certain species of animals are more receptive to TTOUCH than others, or certain personalities of animals.
This is not species specific. We have used this with every species you could possibly imagine, except ants. But the fact is, if you have an animal who is nervous about being touched or concerned or resistant, find a way from a distance. Are you talking dogs or cats?
I'm talking cats.
Okay. With kitties, what I do is I like to sit on well, first of all, are you talking feral cats, your own cat? Tell me a little.
I'm talking my own cat.
And just give me an issue, like.
Well, I have one cat in particular that she's very picky about the way that she's handled. She currently has kidney failure and has received acupuncture, but there are certain points that she won't let the acupuncturist get to, like on her hindquarters. So I wondered if there's some way I could help her become more receptive.
Yes, absolutely. Now, first of all, what you can do, you might want to go online and get our book that's written by Dr. Daniela Zuer for veterinarians, just to kind of, I think it's really helpful to have. But you can do the ear work that will help, first of all, to activate the kidneys. And I would like to, with a cat, sometimes they don't like their ears touched, so I actually just put the ear down into the ear hole and work around it. And then I suggest that you sit on the couch, put your cat facing the tail, facing away from you, and put a little light, like a dish towel, around the chest and over the back, and then start very respectfully with these little touches, find out where the cat's okay, and then move back very quietly to the areas where she's not okay, because I like to work that whole belly area, belly and ears, in addition to your whatever your vet's doing. That's something that you can, what we find with these little tiny circular touches with just the lightest pressure, moving the skin around, you can prepare your cat to accept the needles. Now, it depends where. Boy, it's really tough when you get into the, like my dog gets regular acupuncture, but she can't take it on her paws. It's just where she'd like to get to needle her, but it's not possible. It's just too sensitive. And that's where I use these LifeWave pain patches, because it works. They work on, homeopathically.
And can you give us the name of the pain patches?
Yeah, it's called LifeWave pain patches. If you want to just send me an email, I can send you the information.
Wonderful. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, but just all over. Go all over. Where is he wanting to needle her, first of all?
Well, he's been able to get like 14 of the, or 12 sites out of 15, but whenever he wants to get to the hindquarters and the back leg, he can't get there.
Yeah, it's so sensitive. I can give your vet the information on these pain patches, and my vet often uses them too, because when it's too sensitive to needle, it can have the same effect.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
That's so lovely. That's so wonderful. So now, Robin, are we ready with another question?
Yes, Helen's got another question. And Helen, if you want to click on your video camera, we can see you too. And tell us where you're coming from.
Hi, Los Angeles. Well, Miranda knows our dog well. Luke is a highly sensitive cockapoo, and he he'll let us touch him only sometimes when he's relaxed, and but if anybody comes up to him, or if we move dramatically or just a little slightly, he'll jump away, and he'll wag his tail a bunch to walk up to somebody to greet them. But as soon as they bend down to touch him, he runs away.
How old is he?
He is 5, yes. He's 5.
And how long have you had him? How long has he been like this?
He's been like this probably all of his life, and we've had him since a puppy.
And Linda, having known this dog, he definitely triggers on overstimulation very easily. He has an auric field that is so far past his body that anyone getting near him can trigger him as well.
So, I would start from a distance using the back, making circles in the air on the back with the back of your fingers, because even the front of your hand is going to be too much. And just imagine from a distance, imagine working on him, and just literally connect as though you're connecting with these little circle and a quarter and a little pause and a little slide. From whatever distance it takes for him to stay still. And then start working up closer. And what happens when you, like I would, does he wear a harness? Do you lead him with a harness?
No, he just has a collar.
Because it can make such a difference. What we have really found, that it makes such a difference if you put a harness on that has 2 points of contact on the back and then on a chest. And you can attach, like we use a double-ended leash, or you can just attach a light cord to the middle of the chest and the back. So you've got 2 points of contact. And then have him on a leash, but from a distance, make these little circular movements and really listening, 1 1/4 circles, and smile when you do it, because if you're concerned about it, you will not be in heart coherence. And the dog feels this, and he won't want to be with you. So this is a bit of a challenge, right? So humming works, or a little singing song that will put you in heart coherence, and just hold the possibility of him being able to accept his circle and a quarter from a distance at first. And you will find that what I work, like I say, these 2 points of contact, so that you have a little bit of connection to him, and then start building the trust from a distance until, I'm trying to think, you have to see what works for him. Maybe even a feather, like you have your leash with the 2 points of contact in one hand, and stick the feathers in and see if you can do a little slide and a little circle with the feather. Or we usually do it with what we call a wand, but you don't need that. You can have something that you can reach out and touch them once you get closer to it. And the singing, this little humming singing, can make a huge connection.
Okay. All right. And for others to touch him, should I just forget about that right now and work with us?
First, you get him so that he keeps still for you to touch him all over. And I mean, can you touch him all over his body now?
Oh yeah.
I'm sorry, I forgot to ask you that question. Sorry.
When he's relaxed, yes.
What about when he's not relaxed?
When he's not relaxed, he would rather not get close.
Right. So you start with that. Start with building your trust with him. How is he with your husband?
He's great with Alan.
And with you?
Yeah, Alan is his everything.
So he can touch him anywhere?
Pretty much.
At any time?
At any time, honey.
If I call him over, yeah.
If he calls him over, yeah.
Right. So first of all, see if there are any areas where he is concerned about being touched. And when I say touch, I mean just put your hands on as gently as you can, and I'd use the back of your fingers because you can be much lighter with that. Just
his ears is where he's most sensitive.
Oh, interesting. Well, but do these circles around the neck and shoulders and over along the sides of the spine, and then go down the tail, everywhere else, and then go to the ears.
Okay. And, you know, Linda, as you're talking right now, I'm picking up C4, C2, C3, C4. I think we have some issues going on there as well.
There's got to be something that he's just with.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
I mean, it's one of the things that we discovered many years ago. When you have an animal, no matter what it is, that has unusual behavior some of the time, usually it's a physical issue that's going on. It's so interesting.
Yeah.
And it's just like that little dog Eva. I mean, the most experienced people could not touch her back until she got rid of the pain.
And, you know, something that we sort of addressed, thank you, Helen, for your question, something that we are addressing now more openly, Linda, with you talking about how we are all attached. I mean, we are all together. I remember all the years I have said and explained to people that the etheric field of a cat is so large that they attach themselves to their environment. And what you don't want to do is just pick them up and take them to the vet. You need to give them time to prepare, to pull back in. That's part of who they are. And so how amazing that we now are at the place that we have scientific studies to validate this work. So how wonderful. Do we have the next person now, Robin?
Yes, we have Richard Calland, and we're going to get him connected now.
Wonderful. And Linda, Richard is the veterinarian that is in Canada that we had from last week, who spoke, who was a wonderful guest talking about euthanasia and his work with animals. And so Linda, Richard, Linda.
Hello, Linda. Thank you so much. I'm just enjoying this immensely. And Miranda, too. Thank you so much.
It's really a pleasure to speak with a fellow Canadian.
Linda, I'm wondering if I see when we were doing the hands on the heart, mostly your right hand is next to the skin and left on top, and then in some of the pictures, some of the other people were left against the skin. Does it matter which hand one is using?
Try and see what's comfortable for the person. I find it's quite individual.
The person or animal you're doing it with?
Well, this is for the heart hug for oneself. Find out which feels best, and that may have to do also whether clockwise or counterclockwise is the most comfortable. It's interesting with horses and with dogs. Like on a dog, what I will do is put one hand on the chest and one hand on the withers.
Yes.
And rather than both hands, it's for the person we have both hands. And sometimes I'll put on a dog one hand on the chest and one hand just on the you have to find out really on the pelvis or under the tail, wherever you feel a connection.
Okay. And in working with the animals in doing the T-touch itself, is it important which hand one uses then?
You know, we have really played around with this a lot, and I recommend that people use the hand that they feel the most comfortable with. And if you have a question about it, intuitively you're questioning it, try the other hand and see what the response is. I mean, animals show us their response, and that's where I like to explore, because every person is different and every animal is different, and that's why we don't make rules. We explore to see what works the best.
Yes. Oh, I'm happy to hear that. Do you mind if I have two other questions? Well, one's not a question. I have experienced with a number of different species the influence of my thought on the response from the animals and how willing they are to have me around them. And certainly there's that, I think it's probably that heart place that one enters into, and they're very, of course, receiving of you. And if I am in my thinking mode, it's hit and miss, and a lot of the time they just don't like me around them.
Yes, and what I love about this is where, have you read anything by Heart Math Institute in California?
No.
Look it up.
Heart Math?
Heart, it's H-E-A-R-T, capital M, and then small A-T-H. It's heartmathinstitute.com and .org, and they have been doing research for 20 years on the effect of our thoughts and how it affects our heart coherence. And there's been one study done with horses, showing that if a person sits in a paddock and the horses are just loose around and the person is kind of in an agitated, like thinking too much or not thinking, thinking sort of disruptive thoughts, so to speak, the horses stay away. As soon as they would get into heart coherence, which means it's a state of rhythmic state of the heart, the horses would come over. And I think it would be really interesting for you to contact them and get one of their little, it's called an EM Wave, W-A-V-E. It's a little apparatus that just, fits on your belt, and you clip it to your ear, and it tells you with a sound and a light whether you're in heart coherence or not. And when you're in heart coherence, it has this little ding, ding, and when you are, that's when animals feel comfortable with us and want to be with us. And it's why I often use humming or this little tone that I use, it's just totally intuitive. Like I was working with a vet with a very wild camel in a zoo in Italy last year, and this camel's been there for years and was never tamed. It just was afraid. And what I did was start this Now, why I chose that, I have no idea. Because for every animal, it's different. It just is this tone that comes to me. And I did it over and over using the back of my fingers then from a distance with the touches. And they had a halter and a light line to this. And I had a vet, one of our vets on the other side, and I was on one side, and we just worked with him like this. And in the end, this camel reached out and touched my hat with his nose. And after that, I could reach up and touch all over his face. And the zookeeper was in tears. And I know that part of the connection was that little song. Because, you know, when you're working with a wild animal, boy, it's hard to stay in a really calm, grounded state. And that's what I think people who are successful with animals are just naturally in that state. You don't even have to think about it.
Thank you, Linda. That's so lovely.
But play with it, Richard. I'd love to hear from you because I think you would, and it's really helpful for your clients because we give our clients this, you know, if somebody brings an animal to us that's having a behavior problem, boy, they're kind of in a state of concern. And as long as they're there, as Miranda talks about that connection that we have to our animals, they're influencing that animal, so they can't be in a calm state. So we give them this little M wave to clip on their ear, and then they, with their own thoughts and breathing, can come into this place of heart coherence, and then the animal can work with that. I think you'd love it, Richard.
Oh, I'm loving it.
I just wanted to ask one question here. Linda, do you have any classes coming up in Vancouver?
Oh, you know what? You have to go on my sister's website. She teaches there frequently. Thank you, Robin Hood. And if you go to wait a minute. What is her website? Miranda, can you find it? If you go to our TTOUCH.com and just click on links, and then you see all of the countries, and because I know we have listeners from other countries, and you can find out where you can find a practitioner or a center in your area. And I know, Richard, that my sister Robin would love to be in touch with you, and we do have practitioners in the Vancouver area.
Right, that would be wonderful. And I happen to know, too, Richard, that you have a couple of vet assistants there that would enjoy this as well, named Kylie, who would enjoy attending as well. So go ahead. Did you have one more question for Linda?
I think I'm just trying to sort out my own ideas about souls, and I was just wondering what Linda, how she thinks of or how she would describe the soul of the animal, or is it just no different than we would think of a soul of a human?
I don't think it's any different. I can't see a difference. And if you think of, you know, what the Tibetans believe is that who knows what form we come back in? Why would it be any different?
Yeah.
Thank you.
And, you know, there's a little book. I love this little book. What's her name? Sylvia Brown writes a lot of books about, you know, spirituality. And in one of her books, I don't remember which one, she writes something like, "Of course animals go to heaven because if they're not there, I'm not going." But I actually have had an experience with the Robert Monroe work going, you know, through the veil to the other side. And yes, the animals are there. They have to have souls.
Yes. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Richard, for
Thank you very much.
participating today. This is so lovely. And Robin, I'm wondering, we just have time for about maybe one more question?
Yeah, which is perfect because the one question got answered already on how to find out about trainings with companion animals. I bet that would be from that links page also on the TTOUCH.com page. This is from Kenlyn, and she is in an internet cafe, so she asked me to ask it for her. I've been in contact with an elephant sanctuary in India, and they are having an issue with the male elephants who are in Must. Yeah. These elephants have to be chained and isolated during Must, which everyone hates. Do you have any suggestions I can relay to this sanctuary?
No. You know, that's, that is such a, that being in that state of high sexual activity, I don't have any. So there's nothing I can add. I do not personally have that experience, or have any of our people that I know of who have experience. We have quite a few people working with elephants in sanctuaries in Thailand. We also have a person who works on a regular basis at the Oakland Zoo with the elephants, and there's a lot of work going around the world. That's a question I can't answer. And one thing I would really like to bring up that I wanted to point out, because Miranda, you talked about what our animals have to teach us. And what I love about this Tellington method that we've evolved over the years, developed over the years, is the idea that when we work with understanding and compassion and forgiveness and tolerance and gratitude with our animals, that we learn to see ourselves and our own families and our fellow beings in this way. And I find that at this time, our animals have a really special message for us. And through this, the work that we do, coming from a place acknowledging and working with compassion, with forgiveness, with tolerance, with understanding, and with gratitude for what our animals bring to our lives, that we learn to be then with ourselves, our families, and our fellow beings who walk this earth in the same way. And this is a gift from our animals. And in past ages, animals were needed for survival, for food, for transportation. But now they're in our lives. All of our cats and our dogs, who are often as important as they're a significant other of many, many, many people. And our horses have a different way of being with us. And at this time, it's really for our spiritual survival. And I had a message from this 1,000-year-old Moreton Bay fig tree in the 80s. And what the tree said, that it's necessary to experience and acknowledge the God within. And yet, it's also necessary for the survival of the planet that the kingdoms of the plants and the animals and the minerals and the nature spirits are one with us. And that is the key to survival on this planet. So I really thank you, for this opportunity to share this work. And I wanted to say also, if I may, because I know we run out of time, if they go to our website, you can see practitioners. We have practitioners in 29 countries now who can help with this work. And through the books, people have just had so much success just reading and following their intuition and trusting themselves and listening to their animals.
Trusting. Linda, thank you so much for today. It's so lovely to be with you, for all of us being able to feel you all the way from Hawaii. You're coming into each of our hearts and have been working with our hearts today. We're so grateful. And for all of us, I just want to run by what's going to happen next week. We have the last in this series of 6. We're talking about veterinary medical intuitives, and I will be sharing, and Richard Callan will be returning, and we may have a couple of other people as well, talking about what their experience is of working with a full team of help for their animals, seeing at a cellular level, as well as working from a scientific level, as well as working with all the compassion and hearts, all of us understanding energetically where we are as well. So I look forward to that. And now we have a picture of your new book cover up there, Linda, which is so wonderful. And Robin, did you have anything you wanted to add as we close today?
I just wanted to say thank you so much. This was so, this was just so wonderful, and so, I mean, really great tools for not only being with our animals, but like, you just said, Linda, with all life.
Yes, with all life.
Thank you.
Thank you. You see the flowers behind me. I'd like to invite you each year in February, we have week-long retreats for people wanting to learn T-Touch for themselves. They come to our home, and a week for horses, and a week for dogs and kitties. So someday you may put it on your bucket list.
Okay.
There we go.
Yeah.
Excellent. Excellent. All right, my love to everyone. We've enjoyed you so much today. Thank you for showing up, being here, caring. Obviously, you all communicate with your animals, or you wouldn't even be here involved in this series. So I'm very excited for everyone. Please tell your friends. Remember that all of the webinars are available. Even if someone has not been with us from the beginning, they can go ahead and purchase the series and listen to it in their own time frame.
Great. Thank you so much, Miranda.